Hey, Coach, just wanted to ask you about some of these safeties you brought in. Just any kind of common traits, and what were you looking for in the portal at that position?
Yep. We lost the 3 seniors last year who had played tons of snaps here. And so we were looking to bring in some veteran guys that have played a lot of snaps. So far, 3 days into it, kind of very happy with what they're doing in regards to how they come to work every day. The mindset, to get better, and the urgency shows in terms of being veteran players. So we've been very happy with it.
With Jalen Catalan in particular, you don't probably see many more experienced guys than him. Just what does that look like for him coming in, and how do you kind of see the experience show up through? I guess only 3 days, but this early.
So he's played in, I don't know, maybe 4 different defensive systems and been very productive in that. Very confident. We're shaking it up, so if guys are playing different positions, we're trying to create some competitive depth that way. He's done a nice job absorbing it. He's a student of the game, he's a gym rat. He's always in that building, learning, looking at cut-ups. So we've been very pleased in terms of his mindset and how he comes to work.
How valuable is spring? I mean, you mentioned having to change things up. I'm sure there's a lot of tweaking and adjusting to new guys and guys you've lost. How important is spring to that for the defense?
It's huge, right? Because it's a totally new DNA. And so you got new pieces working with each other. There's competitive balance in most of the position groups. And those are the things that you want to see in these 14 opportunities that we have. But every day coming to work, because we go so early, it gives us a great opportunity to kind of springboard this. And then now what does the post-spring look like, right? But been very happy 3 days into it in terms of our mindset.
Corey, when you look at a guy like Zion, what do you feel like this year is an opportunity-wise for him, especially as a leader, and how would Johnny feel about as well?
Sure. Johnny was a tremendous leader, played so many snaps. Zion being a new guy last year, that wasn't his role. I think this year, just in the off season, I think the game has slowed down for him. He's more comfortable in the things that we're asking him to do. I'm seeing him play faster, seeing the improvement that he's made already in pass rush, trying to become a more complete player. Been very happy with his leadership ability, and he's a very confident guy. And that's what we're going to need with this defense.
Corey, with Nick DeLoach and Toriano Pride, just what did you make of how they played last season? How do they complement each other in that rotation?
Yeah, TP coming in as a transfer, new guy in the mix. And then Nick was kind of a first-time playing player that had been in the system. Both of them, did a nice job. Again, consistency is always the issue when it's your first time actually playing the amount of snaps that those guys have played. And so individually critiquing themselves, I know in the off-season, they've been really diligent getting with Coach Poe in regards to trying to, what's the next 5% I can get better, right? In terms of whether it's technique, whether it's knowledge of the system, right? Anticipating things, knowing formations. Those are the types of jumps that you want to see, in year 2 with those guys, especially the corner position.
Langdon Kitchen, local kid, back in the area. I know it's early, but what have you seen from him, early impressions, and what he can bring?
I think he's got very violent hands. He's very good in the run game right now. The physicality, the mindset that it takes to play, I'm very happy with that. As we start to put more volume in, again, it's his first semester here, right, and really 4th practice, and so trying to create, that understanding that it's not going to come easy. This is the first time, here in this system, and he just needs to make sure that he stays diligent in the process. And thus far, he has been. So those are the things. All that other stuff you take care of itself.
Corey, to have a guy like Tristan Newsom back in the system, what did it mean to you to have him come back from it?
Well, it's kind of cool, it's like a reprieve, right? Like he was done at the bowl game, hugged his neck, he said our goodbyes almost, getting ready, and then boom, it happened. So it's been really cool. And he's looked at it as a blessing. He's come in with a big smile on his face like he always does, but the next few years, what an awesome deal for him. I'm excited to see what he does. He'll make the most of it.
How did his return kind of affect your view of the linebacker group as a whole?
Well, we went in the portal and got some guys, and then obviously with him coming back, there's tremendous competition, and that's what spring's about.
What's kind of the foundation that you're trying to build for this year's defense in spring ball, and how do you build that as you continue through these practices?
Yeah, just because there's so many new pieces, right? We had 28 transfers, right? I think on the defensive side, I think it's close to 17 or 18. So there's a large chunk within the 2 or 3 deep that are new bodies, right? And so we got to assimilate those guys into the brotherhood, and that's been a big part of what we've done in the off season. I know Coach Russ does a great job in terms of when they work out. They're always moving those new pieces in and out of groups and such. So for us, it's just building that cohesion of chemistry, right, and learning what depth row is about. And like I said, the first 4 days coming out, they've done a great job of being very selfless teammates and trying to do what's asked of them. So we can't be pleased. Can't be more pleased with them.
Coach, you already had in your secondary a couple of really long hitters in Marvin Burks and Dalen Carnell. You bring in a couple more in the portal with Jalen Catalan and then Makai at linebacker. Is that sort of defensive explosion something you'd like to build around with this year's defensive identity?
Sure. Physicality and toughness, that's one of the things we're working on this spring. Because you got all those new bodies, right? This is what we're about, and getting them used to kind of how we go about doing things in terms of physicality of practice. But, that's part of what we are. That's our standard, and that standard is unwavering.
Corey, just how excited are you to get Darius Smith and Khalil Jacobs back in the fold?
What was that again?
Just how excited are you to get Khalil Jacobs and Darius Smith back in the fold?
Yeah, those injuries were really tough. Khalil, game 5, had done a really nice job for us as a transfer student. Had a big role in our third down package. So it was tough to see him go down. And then Darius had a really good spring this time last year and is still kind of, you see the things that you remember that you saw. So anxious to see those guys because all they do is create more competitive depth. But both of those guys have unique skill sets that we missed last year. And anxious to see what that looks like, in this year's DNA.
Josiah Trotter, what have you already seen from him that made him the freshman of the year there and someone you wanted? And does he understand the game at a higher level coming off the experience he has?
Sure. Yeah, his physicality jumps out. His ability to communicate. Again, a guy that has played a lot of snaps as a relatively young player, and that experience shows. But 4 days into it, we don't have a ton of scheme in. But the emphasis being the physicality and the mindset, and he certainly brings those things to the table.
Coach Drink was pretty excited talking about the defensive line the other day, talking about all these additions on the defensive end and kind of what he's happy about at defensive tackle as to why you guys didn't bring in another one. So can you kind of expand on the excitement around the defensive line?
Yeah, we got in the portal and brought in some new faces as well as Hilson, who's a mid-year high school kid. He still should be in high school right now. And so brought those guys in from a depth standpoint. We were a little light at defensive end a year ago, so we knew we were going to get in the portal. Very happy with what those guys have brought in. Made a ton of plays today. The Wilson kid from Georgia, he's something different off the edge. Just really excited for what can become. Right? The ceiling is a lot higher, I think, as a position group in terms of us being disruptive and creating more havoc for us.
Coach, for you personally, a year ago you kind of just gotten here. Is there anything you're doing differently this year now that you've had a full year and are a little more settled in?
Yeah, it's a little slower, right? Like this last spring, I was probably here for like 9 days and then we were going, right? So it was like a whirlwind. Still the same urgency, right? You feel more comfortable with the players because you know them, right? So much of spring last year, for a lot of us new guys to the program was kind of just getting a feel for how things are done in the building, how things are done, in the practice. We were new, right? And so just like what's going on with all these transfers, right? The whistle blows, where do I go? All those things. From that standpoint, you kind of take that off your plate. But the expectations being higher right now, obviously, and just excited for the work that the kids have put in 4 days, and now the trick will be what does day 5 look like?
Coach,
We've got time for one more question.
4 Tigers in the combine.
Getting Newsom coming back. What is it like to get DC coming back, helping with that safety?
What was your first part of your question?
I said similar to you talking about getting Tristan back. What's it like getting DC? Knowing he could have been gone to the NFL and stuff like that. So what's it like getting him back here?
Yeah, it's been great. He's taken a different approach. Now, a lot of those veteran guys, like Joseph and Vez and Sid being out of the room. Now he's kind of the old head in the room, and done a great job in regards to bringing some of these transfers guys along. And this is how we go about doing things. I've loved his mindset. A lot of times, last year, you kind of flip the switch, and I've loved what I've seen from him for the first 4 days.